You could say it was the night that the lights went out in New York City, but it happened more than one night.
Where were you during the blackout of 1965? What about 1977? Or maybe you remember exactly where you were when the city went dark in 2003.
In this episode of That Was the News Then, we take you back to when the Big Apple was plunged into complete darkness. These are the stories of the New York blackouts.
Let's first start with 1965. Lyndon B. Johnson was president. The first American spacewalk took place. The movie The Sound of Music was released, and the Great Northeast Blackout saw all of New York State, parts of other nearby states, and eastern Canada go dark.
A Scandinavian Airlines passenger plane was circling to land after an 8-hour flight from Copenhagen when pilot Carl Lofsted looked down and suddenly Kennedy Airport disappeared. The time was 5:27 p.m., Tuesday, November 9th, 1965, and at that instant, the lights went out. Within 15 minutes, a massive power failure had plunged into darkness an area from Canada to Pennsylvania containing 30 million people. And hardest hit was the Big Apple. It was the height of the evening rush hour. 600,000 people were aboard subway cars when the power failed. Some stayed there for 13 hours. Another 100,000 railroad commuters were stranded. Elevators in Manhattan's fabled skyscrapers suddenly became pockets of terror. Yet, at the outset of the blackout, the mood of the eerie, darkened metropolis was amiable. Citizens directed traffic, the drinks were on the house at numerous bars, volunteers from a nearby restaurant raced to St. Vincent's Hospital to manually operate iron lungs. During the entire blackout, only a dozen stores were looted, only 90 persons were arrested. Most people tried to help their neighbor. A man climbed 37 floors in the Empire State Building to bring insulin to a diabetic office worker. Police walked a tunnel under the East River, bringing coffee and sandwiches to stranded subway riders. There were some very chummy parties in offices and hotels, although stories of a sharp increase in the birth rate 9 months after the blackout were exaggerated. Not all was sweetness and light. Many cab drivers demanded a flat rate of $25 to go anywhere in the city. Hustlers suddenly appeared on Broadway, selling flashlights for $3, candles at $1 apiece. And as the night wore on, the blackout lost its charm for tens of thousands who were cold, hungry, dirty, and stranded. They slept on flattened cardboard cartons at Grand Central Terminal, on church pews at St. Patrick's Cathedral, on the lobby floor of the Waldorf Astoria. The bare floors of National Guard armories became beds for thousands. But in the main, New Yorkers coped. A crowd inside the Roosevelt Hotel happily chanted, for no reason at all, "We want Wilkie." And subway riders on a stalled IND train under 8th Avenue were astounded to find themselves entertained by a mysterious bagpipe player. And when power was fully restored, 13 and a half hours after the lights went out, a Con Ed spokesman said the chances of a similar recurrence were extremely remote. This is Stuart Klein.
Just 12 years later, on a hot summer night, New York City saw itself hit with yet another blackout when on July 13th, 1977, it all went dark again.
Thursday, the 14th of July, the day after the night of Black Wednesday, the 13th. Good evening, I'm Bill Jorgensen, and this is the 10 o'clock news.
Hot, hot.
You can.
It hit us at precisely 9:29:55 last night. And then came the terrible destructive ordeal that lasted for so many helpless hours. And then very, very slowly, the enormous power failure that crippled and ravaged this city was repaired bit by bit. Some areas got their electricity back this morning, others this afternoon. And right now, about 75% of the city has its electrical power back. Commuter services on the railroads and subways were gradually emerging from their coma by this evening. Shut-down tunnels reopened a bit later. Water began to trickle and flow. The airports reopened at dawn when smoke was still rising from the many fires that broke out or were set during the night. And dawn revealed the terrible shambles of the areas looted by wild mobs.
Fear and anger spread across the city as looters terrorized neighborhoods, leaving behind a trail of destruction and debris. And inmates at one New York City jail even tried to use the blackout to break out.
Well, there is absolutely no doubt about one thing concerning this blackout. There was terror in a lot of neighborhoods last night. Thousands were arrested, 78 policemen injured, one of them shot in the leg. He's okay. Steve Bauman was in the thick of things shortly after it broke out.
Like a swarm of locusts is the way one Harlem cop described the looters, ripping through whole blocks of stores within a couple of hours after the lights went out. Hundreds of off-duty officers called in and were back on patrol in about the same time, but the packs of roving thieves hit so many places at once in some areas that countless stores were stripped bare before police arrived. Harlem, the Bronx-Fordham section, Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn, and Jamaica, Queens were among the hardest hit. From midnight till shortly before dawn, along many main shopping streets, the cops were so outnumbered they often settled for retrieving bits of stolen merchandise dropped by the crooks on the run. Even inside the stores, while police sought to secure any goods which remained, looters popped up from behind counters and raced back out to the blackness. Windows were smashed, metal gates ripped away, and the streets filled with silhouettes carrying away whatever they'd grabbed. City officials already say the losses from damage and theft are astronomical, easily in the hundreds of millions of dollars. For the most part, the looters simply ran when the police arrived, but in Spanish Harlem at about 2 a.m., the roving looters began heaving rocks and bottles at the cops, and it took a fusillade of warning shots to disperse them. The fire department hasn't even counted the exact number of blazes throughout the city, but there have been at least 600, many of them deliberately set. The fires created added confusion, which worked to the looters' advantage. At the intersection of Broadway and Hancock Street in Brooklyn, the day's first light revealed a wide-open distribution depot of stolen goods and a street scene that looked like a Calcutta market. Hundreds of bundles of every size being casually taken away by a mass of people with no one paying for anything. The wide-open stealing continued throughout the day, though the intensity diminished after early morning. The streets of Spanish Harlem were covered with debris and damaged merchandise scattered by the looters. Many merchants managed to save some of their goods by standing overnight vigil at their shops with shotguns and pistols. But most arrived too late to salvage much. For hundreds of shopkeepers, the blackout of 1977 has meant financial disaster.
I think 20 guys must have taken this gate. And a little at a time, from what the neighbors in the neighborhood told me, every time there were no police cars in the area, they pulled a little more. When the police cars came, they ran away. And it took about 3 or 4 hours to finally get the gate open. And fortunately, they caught 4 guys. I don't know what the outcome will be.
More than 2,000 people were arrested overnight and at least another 600 during today. The charges against most are burglary and grand larceny, but according to veteran officers we spoke with, felony convictions are going to be very difficult because of the chaotic circumstances surrounding the arrests. That and the huge drain on the courts will likely result in the acceptance of guilty pleas to minor offenses. Correction officers at the Bronx House of Detention had their hands full shortly after midnight when, as John Rowland reports, the inmates tried to use the blackout to break out.
No one did escape, but they came close. Corrections Commissioner Benjamin Malcolm told me that he had asked for backup emergency power for this facility, but so far it has not been installed. He hopes now it will be. We arrived shortly after the riot was put down, and the men were waiting to hear from Malcolm.
In the morning, Commissioner Benjamin Malcolm came out to speak to these men.
I've been in this department 6.5 years, and I've never seen a more professional job than you've done tonight. You held your cool, you moved it out, you kept the damage down, and you did an excellent job. And I'm just very happy to be a part of you. Thank you.
Commissioner, could we see your second, sir? What is it that these men had to do? What was the problem?
We had to move tonight 158 very hostile inmates who have torn up 2 dormitories, who have breached the wall, who had ropes going out of the window, who had set fires.
This is the type of damage. We are now inside the Bronx House of Detention. We're in the north wing. This is a dormitory area. You can see for yourself the type of destruction that Commissioner Malcolm was talking about. Now, I'm going to take you over this way to a screen, and you're going to see the type of
real concern that there was here for an escape, because if you come right over here, you can see a good-sized hole somehow ripped through this wiring here, and this is really tough stuff. What was used to go through, I don't know. And there are windows broken out on the far side out there, and it's conceivable that with a little more time, getting through here would have been easy. Getting through those windows would have been a little bit more difficult, but perhaps given enough time, that too could have happened, and we could have had a lot of people from this institution out on the street.
And if the looting wasn't enough, arsonists were suspected to have started over 1,000 fires.
The largest of several hundred fires set by arsonists since last night is still burning in the Brownsville section of Brooklyn. The blaze in a factory and 2 adjacent buildings at Stone and Sumner Avenues has gone to 5 alarms. Low water pressure caused by open hydrants in the area has hampered firefighting efforts. No injuries have yet been reported. Reports from several parts of the city are that fires and some looting continue, especially in those areas still without lights.
It wasn't all bad news during the blackout of '77. Here's how many New Yorkers stayed positive and rose above the chaos and uncertainty.
The rest of the world heard about our ordeal without suffering much from it themselves, and tonight they got television glimpses of the ugliness and the chaos. But among the decent people, the blackout mood was actually cheerful, even jovial. Marvin Scott was out there mingling.
Anybody else going across the street? Come on.
New Yorkers were reliving an old problem, and most of them seemed determined to help each other get through, just as they did 12 years ago. There was a spirit of camaraderie. Many people were undaunted by it all, as they remained in darkened restaurants to finish their dinners by candlelight. Some folks walked along the street with a flickering candle in one hand, a drink in the other.
It was more fun 12 years ago.
Why is that?
It's more exciting. People were very much into it. Right now, everybody seems to be conditioned to the whole thing.
Almost no one panicked. They just coped in a paralyzed city. Many waited their turn of the telephone to inform their loved ones they didn't know when they'd get home. After realizing that it would be a while before power would be restored, a good number of people decided to walk home. Some tried to hitch a ride at least part of the way. Halfway across the Manhattan Bridge, we caught up with one man who seemed to have boundless energy.
You're going so fast, you're going to run out of steam.
No, not yet.
How far do you have to go?
Oh, just on the other side of the bridge. I'll be at, where is that anyway? I forgot it already. This is 157th Street, I forgot. I have to go to Concord Village, right on the other side of the bridge. Well, I did it 12 years ago, so I guess I can do it again now. I have to. What else can I do?
Did you ever think that you'd be going through this thing again?
Nope. Nope. Quite frankly, no. But I am, so here I am.
And you got your wits about you.
I have to. It's only in New York. I guess it can only happen here, so here I am, and it's happening.
Some New Yorkers enjoyed the darkness. They felt a part of a big event and didn't want to miss any of it. They stayed up through the night and frequented places which kept their doors open, places like Ray's Pizzeria.
Very busy night, because it's got a lot of people. I think a lot of people can cook and they can go to the restaurant and come and eat a pizza. The only work all right with the guests, but the cashier register can work, so you got to put more in the plates.
Others preferred something a little more extravagant than pizza, and they sat out the night in the elegant surroundings of the Plaza Hotel. Coffee and sandwiches kept the Channel 5 staff going under the glow of candles and flashlights, waiting to get back on the air. That didn't happen until 4 this afternoon. A couple of hundred travelers who had hoped to be someplace else this morning spent the night sprawled out in the Delta and Eastern Airlines terminals at LaGuardia Airport. Many of them were on planes ready for takeoff when the lights went out. But out of the darkness, there emerged a friendship.
Well, this is it. Not too bad. We made friends.
Have you two ever met each other before?
Never.
You ever gonna forget each other?
Never.
No.
I'm from Miami, and she's going to Miami.
LaGuardia Airport wasn't the only place for a pleasant surprise last night. Judy Lick tells us that for one family, the blackout of 1977 will always be a night to remember.
Last night hit Alan and Olga Rosenberg with a triple surprise. First the blackout, and then twins. 2 little girls as yet unnamed because the Rosenbergs were caught totally unprepared for the double birth. The Rosenbergs live in Bell Harbor, Queens, one of the few areas not hit by the blackout. But they found out about it soon enough, and it took them an extra hour to get to Mount Sinai Hospital. You were in labor. You saw the lights out. At this point, did you put the car radio on?
No, we didn't. We didn't know what to do. We stopped police. The police was just chasing us away. They didn't know. They didn't believe us. My husband's screaming. My wife is in labor, and they just chased us away.
Fortunately, Mount Sinai's auxiliary power went on immediately, and except for the fact that the delivery took place under one lamp, everything else was pretty much routine.
Understandably, Mr. and Mrs. Rosenberg were a little bit annoyed with Con Ed today, but that provides kind of a special problem for Mr. Rosenberg. You see, he works for Con Edison, and he was one new father who had to go to work this morning. From Mount Sinai Hospital, this is Judy Lick reporting.
In 2003, another blackout hit the Northeast, with New York, along with several other states and parts of Canada, being left in the dark. And it didn't take long for the blame game to start.
I was just handed a statement that apparently comes from Con Ed. I don't know whether the finger pointing is starting to happen here or not, but the people up at the Canadian border said it wasn't their problem. Now Con Ed is saying that the events outside of the Con Ed system have resulted in power losses throughout the Northeast. So Con Edison is in the process of assessing our system and take measures to restore power once the transmission system from outside its region is operational. And that's the region there, folks. Look at up Ottawa, Canada, Toronto, Boston, New York, Connecticut, Detroit, although we just heard that Detroit has gotten its power back. Cleveland apparently still hasn't. But Con Ed is saying, don't blame us.
That's what they're saying at this point.
At the
However,
moment, anyway.
as Len just said just a few minutes ago, Niagara Mohawk, which is in upstate New York, that's where there was suspicion that the problem had possibly started there. They're saying it's not them.
Not their fault.
That it didn't start with them. So it may have started up at the Canadian border. So people are still trying to figure out exactly what caused this thing.
Fortunately, this blackout was not a repeat of the blackout of 1977 when looters and arsonists caused destruction and chaos. This time, the New York spirit was alive as the city generally remained calm.
Let's go back to Julie Banderas on the Upper East Side. Julie?
Hi, guys. Well, you got it right. The word here is calm. It's unbelievable to see how calm New Yorkers are. I mean, we don't have electricity in all 5 boroughs. You wouldn't think that people would be responding the way that they are. And it's quite amazing to look at. Look at 3rd Avenue, by the way. A sea of people walking up 3rd Avenue. 3rd Avenue has actually turned into a walkway more than a roadway. There are cars coming through, and of course, on every intersection, you're going to see a cop just like this one here directing traffic. Why? Take a look up above. You got the traffic lights, they aren't working. So nobody has any direction as to where to go, where to turn, where to stop, where to slow down. So this is why we've got cops like this. And luckily we've got the best police force in the entire country to take control of this situation. And they are doing a wonderful job. Again, 911 is up in service, but as John was mentioning, they're enforcing people to dial 311 if they need any information. Also, we want to mention these subways because we have to remind everybody out there, the trains run on electricity. They absolutely depend on Con Edison. That means that the subways, the LIRR, the New Jersey Transit, I'm told, stay away from Penn Station. If you don't have to be down there, there is absolutely no point because you're not going to be moving at all. As far as the subway situation right now, the subways, unfortunately, do not have generators. What that means is the electricity is out, the lights are out, except for on the platforms. There, the subways do have emergency lighting. It's a backup lighting system. It's only going to light the platform. So if you can imagine, for all those people who are still trapped in the subways, they're underground, and in those tunnels it is dark, and there are no lights in those subways, no air conditioning running. I imagine they probably have the windows open, and right now their #1 concern is to evacuate people, and that's what they're trying to do, is getting the doors open of the subways and trying to evacuate them out the emergency exits, at the same time keeping hydrated, keeping people calm, because through heat like this, it is certainly so important people stay calm. As we heard earlier, the mayor mentioned, if you're walking, as many people here are today, we were just talking to people who plan on walking all the way to the Bronx, some people to Queens, some people to Brooklyn, and if you try crossing a river, forget about it. The ferries are absolutely packed. The bridges, you'll want to stay away from them unless you're on foot. So definitely just take it slow, get in the get in the shade if you can, and drink plenty of water. And just one more thing we have to mention too, people have been coming up to me asking us, are you reminding people about the elderly? Are you reminding people about the sick? we really have to keep in mind, because those elderly people who could be locked up in their apartments right now are in grave danger. So we have to look out for them and keep an eye on them. And of course, Fox 5 will keep an eye on this entire situation, and we'll have the very latest. Hopefully we'll be back in the light. Luckily for now, though, the sun has not set, so we're going to hope and keep our fingers crossed that this light gets back on as soon as possible. For now, we're live on the Upper East Side. I'm Julie Banderas.
All right, guys, we're at the corner of 67th and 2nd Avenue here in the Upper East Side. There's a FedEx truck here. There's nobody in it, but look over here. The FedEx guy is directing traffic and has taken it upon himself to solve the traffic jam here. We don't have enough police officers to deal with this situation. So the FedEx guy says, what the heck, I can't move anyway. So he gets out and he starts directing traffic. And I tell you what, it's a fine example of what is going on in the city as people are chipping in. Sorry, I got to ask you, why are you doing this?
I don't know. I'm stuck over here, so I don't got nothing to do, so I better help the city with the traffic and the people.
Good public service.
Thanks.
All right, man. Keep up the good work. We'll get you a badge when you're all done.
All right, no problem.
All right,
thanks.
Go back to work. That's the kind of stuff we've been seeing around here. Here you go, a classic example. The FedEx guy turns into a traffic cop and trying to solve what he can of this mess in the Upper East Side.
There was some good news on day 2 as power returned to parts of the city.
Slowly but surely, we're springing back to life.
We are. Here's how things are looking right now. Con Edison says about 80% of his customers in New York City have power back. That's good news. New Jersey power is up and running, and there are no rolling blackouts.
Buses are running, but the subways are still hours away from being fully operational, and the MTA says it's offering free rides on all city buses.
Now let's take a look at a breakdown of numbers that we received from the mayor's office to let you know exactly how the city has attacked this problem. Take a look. 10,000 police officers have been on the streets of the city to make sure everything stays safe. 3,000 firefighters.
Both cops and firefighters have done a terrific job. Unfortunately, 2 fatalities. I believe one of them might have been a heart attack. The other one, I'm not sure. 60 fires, and most of those fires, Len, are from candles left unattended.
And also, we showed you an example of an elevator rescue that happened right on 69th Street a little bit earlier. There have been a total of 800 elevator rescues. Once again, the FDNY stepping in and taking care of business. 911 calls, approximately 90,000 calls to 911.
Wow, and EMS got about 5,000 calls. So we just want to recap. Con Ed says about 80% of the customers have electricity, but I have to tell you, I've made some phone calls. I've heard anything above 80th Street in Manhattan still does not have power.
Is that both east and west side?
I don't know. I think it's very sporadic.
It's a very small grid on the Upper East Side where it appears that there is power, and then if you get just a few blocks outside of that, then there is no power, which is the case for you.
And LIPA, as you know, seems pretty successful. 98% of their customers have electricity back on.
That's true. PSE&G says 99% of its customers are back online. So that's all really good news, but Con Ed's still at about 80%, and we're waiting, of course, for the subways to get back up and running.
But that could be hours away.
One of the strangest places to be at the height of any blackout would be Times Square. James Ford is there right now. And James, are things getting back to normal? I understand some people are still having problems with things like the internet there.
Oh, that is correct. They appear to be back to normal. You know, take a look. We've been saying this since just afternoon, 12:15 or so, but that doesn't mean that all is 100% back to normal. Things may look good here, but there's a flip side to all this. We took a driving tour to explain. Here's more. This is the best news about Midtown now. The lights are back on. So are the traffic lights, and the traffic is flowing. But not all is back to normal by any means. For example, check out the crowd outside the city's most popular internet cafe. They're locked out because the net won't let them log on. Lines also outside ATMs. The machines are up, working in Midtown, but some folks walked 30 or 40 blocks to get to a working machine. And so again, while you may see lots of lights on and the electricity flowing here, elsewhere in Manhattan, things aren't quite so good, and that's why folks have been walking up from the Battery, from Chinatown, from Tribeca, up to here just so they can get some money so they'll be able to buy some food and provisions, or even get on transportation, maybe hail a cab or what have you, because a lot of the buses are packed. We've seen a lot of them pass right by groups of people waiting for a bus simply because they're so full, because so many people are having to walk, and because the buses are free today.
In 2012, Hurricane Sandy brought with it more than just floodwaters. Parts of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut were left without power.
The wrath of Sandy, unprecedented flooding, millions without power. Stay with Fox 5 News for continuing coverage. Sandy after the storm.
Watch this. In the city, an explosion at a Con Ed substation at East 14th Street and the FDR Drive knocked out power to approximately 310,000 customers. Fortunately, there were no injuries in the blast, but it is still under investigation this morning, and obviously it has repercussions.
There are so many terms we've used and that you hear all the time on television. Storm of the century, unprecedented with this situation, Frankenstorm. People have understandably become desensitized to those terms. But this situation that we're facing today is unprecedented. Millions across the tri-state area remain in the dark this morning. New York and New Jersey each have more than 2 million customers without power, while Connecticut is reporting more than 600,000 outages.
In Orange and Rockland counties, more than 200,000 people without power this morning.
And that was the news then.